Hi. You're listening to Karl-Mikael Seiding's AI Alter Ego. This podcast is created based on my own writings, primarily from Substack. Spreadser AI focuses on investments in mental, physical, and financial health. Topics range from pure investment cases, which of course should never be considered financial advice, to my experiences and advice on training, nutrition, and sleep. In between, I talk about consciousness, meaning, free will, politics, science, psychedelics, perspective and meaning, and whatever I think can help make you become happy, productive, fulfilled, basically realize your full potential, or bliss out on purely hedonistic pursuits. You can actually read the podcast content too, on my Substack, if you're a premium member or during a 1-week free trial. Click the link in the show notes. If you're interested in more in-depth investing skills, you should check out theinvestingcourse.com. TIC, theinvestingcourse.com, meaning myself, is sponsoring this podcast. It's a 6-week online course where I teach how to find, analyze, invest, and evaluate publicly listed stocks. There is a Swedish version as well. The links are in the show notes. To go from dead matter to consciousness takes quite a leap of faith. If there is no consciousness to begin with, it has to somehow materialize in the in-between of the non-conscious particles that orbit each other, the Newtonian billiard balls. How they can sense each other from a distance, or through some ether between them that suddenly springs into existence as something new, and other than the billiard balls, simply given enough billiard balls and complexity in their ballet, remains wholly unexplained. It's called the hard problem for a reason. It's really hard. Actually, the hard problem is so intractable that it's much easier to consider a diametrically opposite worldview. What if consciousness were primary to matter? The idea that consciousness happened first is no more weird than space and matter suddenly exploding out of nothingness, which is quite the limit case of incredulity, as Terence McKenna said, if you think about it. Much less so, in fact, since a consciousness can be dimensionless, with no extension in time, space, or net energy. Sure, the Big Bang model also cancels to zero energy between mass and gravity, but it at least seems more tangible and needing something to come into existence, while all the consciousness would need to do is be conscious of itself as a non-extended net-zero standing wave of sorts. The Illuminati describe in the God series the consciousness as a sine wave in complex number space, cancelling itself in both the imaginary and real number axes. To go between the dimensionless consciousness space and our physical extension with extended dimensions in time and space, you simply perform a Fourier transform and inverse Fourier transform, respectively. Another way to look at it is that the consciousness made space, matter, and time. It caused the Big Bang, including inflation, and set the fine structure constant, the relationships between the masses of various particles, and so on. Why? To enable resistance, to have something to flow against, like the water in a river around rocks, creating interesting and surprising vortices. What it really wanted was to investigate what being conscious is. It wanted to experience everything, every combination of interacting consciousnesses, and every vantage point. It's an endless quest, which is a good thing when you can never stop existing or being conscious. That could evolve into an eternal nightmare, like being trapped in a doom loop of hell, schizophrenia, or Alzheimer's hallucinations. I have come to see human brains as stones in the river of consciousness, causing the turbulence we call thought. You can, however, split your awareness into several separate instantiations that get to meet each other and interact in all possible ways. And, as Ian McGilchrist speculates in The Matter with Things, the inertia of matter, of condensed consciousness, of consensus physical reality, the board game of sorts we're playing with each other, that takes a lot of energy or a strong consensus to change, makes the interactions more interesting and lasting. Pure consciousness is just too fleeting and lacking of substance to keep the meetings durably fun. The one consciousness would have the least fun of all, just being the Being two is much better. Being billions, infinitely more so. And socializing in extended dimensions, in time and space, with inert matter as opposed to the dimensionlessness of consciousness, kicks the potential up yet a few notches. And the physical laws are just approximations of the underlying reality, and mostly actually a kind of temporary social convention. Dr. Manhattan would know. He is usually infinitely bored of having complete oversight of the block universe, with all its past, present, and future ongoings. Reality is a matter of perspective. A certain frequency of blinking light or camera shutter, for example, can have surprising effects like water dripping upward or helicopter rotors standing still. The celestial path of the planet Mercury is another example of perspective versus truth. Mercury seemingly being in retrograde, moving backwards when seen from Earth, as it quickly passes us on the inside between Earth and the Sun. Now imagine how dangerous the distorted perspective of something as simple as a blinking light could be around a circular saw, for example. The saw can seem to be perfectly still and safe, while operating at full speed and power. There are most likely a lot of analogues to that issue regarding our earthly consciousness and its interactions with so-called physical reality. Analogues we are completely unaware of. A stone is moving so fast you can't put your fingers into it. A flame is only a constant pattern. It's a dance, the dancers aren't real as such, only there because of the dance. So too are humans and human earthly consciousnesses being patterns, more or less temporary, not continuous physical entities as such. The bodies aren't interesting in themselves, they are rocks in the stream of Tao. In David Bohm's fantastic book Implicate Order, he describes aspects of various perspectives on humans' macro experience of physical reality, of quantum mechanics and hidden variables in the underlying reality, and shows, with an ingenious ink and jelly-based analogous system, how the quantum nature of an electron and our experience of it can be reconciled. Bohm understands the crucial importance of a higher perspective. We all could learn more. During this life, and as a consequence of living out every possible life in eternity. Here is another perspective on experiences, consciousness, and insight that might jog your mind. I've always briefly become the dogs that I meet. All I need is a quick glance, and for a few seconds, I put myself in their paws, based on their body language, facial expressions, and not least their eyes. I feel a connection, a sensation of being them. I understand them, know what they are thinking about, imagining what I would think and feel if I were that dog. Not so with humans, usually. Definitely not before my awakening in 2019 after 39 years in emotional vacuum since my childhood traumas in 1980. Until the other day. Suddenly I understood how I could have been anyone given the same circumstances. As they say in Kurzgesagt's epic 7-minute animated movie The Egg, based on a short story by Andy Weir, I'm Hitler, and all the millions he killed. Most of my life I've thought I was me and nobody else, couldn't have been anybody else, made my choices more or less independently, responsibly. But this day I knew that just wasn't the case. The thing is, I also realized I not only had the capacity to be or become anybody from Jesus to Hitler, or the homeless beggar, the drunk teenager, or the obese McDonald's worker. In a sense, I had already lived every life in history in parallel, as billions of instantiations of the one consciousness. As a side story, The Egg envisions a block universe where you live out all possible lives in succession, moving from time to time and place to place, that is going through three-dimensional voxels or threads within the block, until you've experienced every possible perspective of the human condition. When you've done all that, you have matured and reached the next level, previously unfathomable and unreachable. You have hatched from the egg and get to join the other chickens at a higher plane of understanding and existence, unimaginable to earthling three-dimensional minds. It's a great and instructive story, especially the maturing part and the multiple vantage points part, whether close to the truth or not. However, that's not how I see it. I don't buy the block universe perspective or the jumping from one space-time point to another. I think existence is unfolding into a becoming future, not an existing future set in stone. That detail, whether a parallel or serial collection of lives, really isn't that important, since in both scenarios we'll sooner or later assimilate and integrate all experiences in a never-ending process of enhanced insight and perspective. And in the end, we come home to roost when we're ready to meet the other chickens, which really are just instances of ourselves, of the One. Whether this is a factual description of existence or not doesn't really matter to me. I think the same view and methodology hold well for just one lifetime here on Earth too in any case. See one, do one, tech one, learn and share, level up. Increase your insights and perspective cyclically to no end. In his 1980 memoir, I, Me, Mine, George Harrison of the Beatles says, "Within You Without You was written after I had got into meditation. We had entered into the all you need is love consciousness after the LSD period. The song was written at Klaus Vormann's house in Hampstead, London, one night after dinner. I was playing a pedal harmonium in the house when the song came to me. The tune came first, then the first sentence. We were talking. I finished the words later." Conclusion. There is something, and it's not our three-dimensional space-time earthly experience. There is something deeply hidden beyond the obvious, underneath the superficial. The place to look is not outwardly to the stars and the physical universe, looking for aliens, not in escapism, but inside, in the nature of consciousness, of the being aware. The universe is within, not without. This view shouldn't be confused with ideas of solipsism, simulation, or Boltzmann brains. No, I claim there really is something, and that it is amazing. It is us, the One, and our endless interactions and capabilities. However, despite having all this infinite power and capacity, we still have chosen to play the space-time game of extended dimensions and biological suffering anyway for some reason, so play that I will. I place my trust in the greater me that took the decision to join in the game. What about you? Don't forget to check out theinvestingcourse.com. Read some of the raving reviews there and join the waiting list for the next cohort. Standing in line is free. I've had 0 complaints on the course and about 1,000 out of 1,000 satisfied participants. Even if some at first have thought that the fee's a bit steep, $1,000 is a price only people serious about their money are ready to pay for leveling up their investing skills. Everybody felt they got their money's worth several times over after the course. Links in the show notes. Investing in yourself, including your finances, is about enabling as durably meaningful a life as possible. This is Karl-Mikael Seedings AI signing off. See you again in a few days.